The morning sky over Seoul changed forever when the ships arrived. Captain Do-hyun Park was drinking his coffee in the military command center when the first reports came in. Huge dark shapes had appeared over every major city on Earth. They hung in the air like storm clouds, silent and waiting. Do-hyun put down his cup and walked to the big screen that showed the radar data. The objects were massive. Each one was bigger than 10 city blocks put together. They had appeared without any warning, without any sound, without any sign they were coming. "Sir, we're getting calls from Tokyo, London, New York, and Moscow," said Lieutenant Jinwoo, his voice shaking. "The same things are over their cities too." Do-hyun nodded. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. In 20 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. "Get me a direct line to the president, and call Dr. Kim at the Science Center. We need her here right now." 30 minutes later, Dr. So-young Kim rushed into the command center. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who studied alien life even though until today no one had ever found any. She looked up at the screen showing the giant ships and her mouth fell open. "They're real," she whispered. "After all these years of looking for life in space, they came to us." The ships stayed quiet for 3 hours. Then, at exactly noon in each time zone, they all began to send out the same message. A voice spoke in perfect Korean over Seoul, perfect English over London, perfect Japanese over Tokyo. Every person on Earth heard the message in their own language. "People of Earth," the voice said. It sounded calm and friendly. "We are the hegemony. We have traveled far to bring you wonderful news. Your world will now be under our protection. You will be safe from the dangers of space. All we ask is that you put down your weapons and let us guide your governments. This is a great honor. Few worlds are chosen for protection." In the command center in Seoul, Do-hyun watched the president's face on the video screen. President Jae-won looked tired and scared. "What do you think, Captain? Should we trust them?" Before Do-hyun could answer, a new voice came through the speakers. "We would like to speak with your leaders face to face. We will send our ambassador to your United Nations building in 1 hour." Dr. Kim grabbed Do-hyun's arm. "Something is wrong," she said quietly. "Did you hear how they talked? They said protection from the dangers of space, but they didn't say what those dangers are. And they want us to give up our weapons before they even tell us why we need protection." Do-hyun had been thinking the same thing. "You're right. When someone offers to protect you, the first question should be, protect you from what?" 1 hour. Later, the whole world watched as a small ship landed outside the United Nations building in New York. The being that stepped out looked almost human, but taller and thinner. Its skin was pale blue and its eyes were large and dark. It wore simple white clothes and carried no weapons that anyone could see. The being called itself Ambassador Taemin. It walked into the United Nations building and stood before leaders from every country on Earth. Cameras from around the world showed everything that happened. "My name is Taemin," the being said. Its voice was soft and pleasant. "I speak for the galactic hegemony. We rule over 300 worlds. We keep peace in this part of space. We keep worlds safe from threats they cannot handle alone." Secretary General of the United Nations, a woman named Director Hee-jin, leaned forward. "What threats? What dangers are you talking about?" Taemin's large eyes looked around the room. For just a moment he seemed nervous. "The universe is full of dangers. Worlds that are not guided often destroy themselves. Wars, pollution, weapons that can break planets. We prevent these things." But Admiral Choi from South Korea was not satisfied. She had commanded ships in the Pacific for 15 years and knew when someone was not telling the whole truth. "You talk about protecting us from ourselves, but your message mentioned dangers of space. What dangers in space?" The room became very quiet. Everyone watched Taemin's face. His blue skin seemed to become a little more pale. He looked at his hands, then at the floor, then finally back at the human leaders. "There are hostile forces in the galaxy," he said slowly. "Forces that do not respect life as we do. We stand between peaceful worlds and these forces. What? Forces? Admiral Choi asked again. What are their names? Where do they come from? How strong are they? Taemin was clearly uncomfortable now. He shifted in his chair and his hands moved nervously. The details are not important. What matters is that we can keep you safe. But you must trust us completely. You must disarm your military and accept our guidance. Back in Seoul, Dr. Kim was taking notes on everything she saw. She had studied animal behavior before she studied space science, and she knew the signs of fear when she saw them. Taemin was afraid of something, and whatever it was not humans. Do-hyun, she said. Look at his body language. He's terrified, but not of us. He keeps looking up at the ceiling like he's worried something might be watching him from above. Do-hyun saw it too. And did you notice? Every time someone asks about these space dangers, he changes the subject back to protecting us from ourselves. President Jae-won called an emergency meeting with his top advisors. Some wanted to accept the hegemony's offer immediately. We have no choice, said Defense Minister Sang-hoon. Their technology is clearly far ahead of ours. If we fight them, we lose. If we accept their protection, at least we live. But Admiral Choi disagreed. Protection that costs us our freedom is not protection at all. It's surrender. And I don't trust someone who won't answer simple questions. The debate went on for hours. Finally, President Jae-won made a decision. We need more information before we choose. Captain Park, I want you to find out everything you can about these hegemony beings. Dr. Kim, I want you to study their technology and behavior. We have to make the right choice for all humanity. That night, as the alien ships hung silently over Earth's cities, Do-hyun stood on the roof of the command center and looked up at them. They were beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves and soft lights. But something about them made him think of sharks circling in dark water. Dr. Kim joined him on the roof. I've been thinking about their offer, she said. They say they want to protect us from the dangers of space, but they won't tell us what those dangers are. That's like a doctor offering to operate on you but refusing to say what disease you have. Do-hyun nodded. And there's something else. If they're so powerful, if they rule 300 worlds, why do they seem so worried? What could make beings with this much technology so nervous? The question hung in the air between them as they stared up at the alien ships. Tomorrow, humanity would have to give an answer. But tonight, Do-hyun and Dr. Kim both had the feeling that they were missing something very important about their visitors, something that might mean the difference between protection and destruction. Dr. So-young Kim could not sleep that night. She kept thinking about Ambassador Taemin's nervous behavior and the way he avoided direct questions. At 3 a.m, she gave up trying to rest and went to her lab at the Seoul Science Center. The TU lab was quiet and dark except for the soft blue glow from her computer screens. Kim pulled up all the data they had collected about the alien ships. The readings were strange. The ships used technology that was clearly more advanced than anything humans had, but something about the energy patterns looked old. Like a car that's been repaired many times, she said to herself. The power systems showed signs of patches and upgrades as if the original design had been changed over and over again. Her phone buzzed. It was Captain Do-hyun. Can't sleep either? He asked. No. I'm looking at the ship data. Something's not right about their technology. Meet me at the command center in 30 minutes. I want to show you something. When Kim arrived, she found Do-hyun with Sergeant Min-ho, a young man who specialized in communications and computer systems. Min-ho looked excited and worried at the same time. Tell Dr. Kim what you found, Do-hyun said. Min-ho pulled up a screen full of numbers and wave patterns. I've been monitoring all radio and communication signals since the ships arrived. The aliens are talking to each other, but they're not just using their own communication systems. They're also using some of our satellite networks. Why would they do that? Kim asked. That's what I wanted to know. So I found a way to listen in. Min-ho's fingers moved quickly over his keyboard. Most of their messages are coded, but I managed to decode some of them. Dr. Kim, they're not talking like conquerors or protectors. They're talking like people who are running away from something. Minho played a recording. The voices were speaking in the alien language, but his computer provided a rough translation. Status report from Sector 7. All quiet. No signs of pursuit. How long until the humans give us an answer? Soon. We must make them accept quickly. Every day we stay here increases the risk. What if the hunters find us here? Then we run again. But first, we get what we need from this world. The recording ended. The three humans looked at each other in silence. Hunters, Dr. Kim said finally. Not protectors, not guides. They're running from something called hunters. Do-hyun nodded grimly. And they want to use Earth as a hiding place. Over the next several days, Minho and his team intercepted more messages. Each one painted a clearer picture of what the hegemony really was. They were not the powerful rulers they claimed to be. They were refugees, running from world to world, staying just ahead of something that terrified them. The messages mentioned other worlds that had been protected by the hegemony. Places with names like Kepler 442b, Ross 128b, and Proxima Centauri. But when the humans tried to send radio signals to these worlds, they got no response. According to their telescopes, several of these planets showed no signs of life at all. 17 worlds, Dr. Kim said as she looked at the data. 17 worlds that accepted hegemony protection. And now they're silent. Engineer Woo Jin, who had been brought in to study the alien technology, made an even more disturbing discovery. He had been analyzing pieces of metal and other materials that had fallen from the alien ships when they landed. This technology is old, he told the team, like not just old but worn out. These ships have been traveling for a long time, and they've been repaired with materials from many different worlds. Look at this. He showed them a piece of metal under a microscope. This section was made with iron that could only come from a planet with very specific conditions. This part over here was made with a titanium alloy that requires different conditions entirely. They're using materials from different worlds to keep their ships working. Dr. Kim understood immediately. They strip mine the worlds they protect. They take what they need and move on. But what are they running from? Do-hyun asked. What could be so dangerous that it would make beings with this technology run for years? The answer came 3 days later. Minho intercepted a longer message that made everyone in the room go pale. Alert to all hegemony vessels. Long-range sensors have detected Devourer scout ships in the outer systems. Estimate arrival in this sector within 1 standard cycle. Recommend immediate evacuation procedures for all protected worlds. Repeat, the Devourers have found us again. Devourers, Dr. Kim whispered. They're running from things called Devourers. Minho kept working on the communications, and slowly a terrible picture began to form. The Devourers were not just another alien race. They were something much worse. The intercepted messages described them as beings that could consume entire star systems, turning planets and suns into fuel for their own growth. They eat solar systems? Do-hyun asked. According to these messages, yes. They break down matter at the molecular level and use it to make more of themselves. And they've been chasing the hegemony across the galaxy for 300 years. Dr. Kim felt sick. And now they're coming here. Because the hegemony led them here. The team worked day and night to gather more information. What they discovered was even worse than they had imagined. The hegemony had a pattern. They would find a world with a young civilization, offer protection, and convince the people to disarm and accept hegemony rule. Then they would take everything useful from the planet, metals, energy sources, even people to work their ships. When the Devourers got close, the hegemony would abandon the world and move on to find another one. We're not being offered protection, Dr. Kim told President Jae-won during an emergency video conference. We're being offered up as bait. They want to use our world as a shield while they strip it clean and prepare to run again. President Jae-won looked older than he had just a week ago. Are you certain about this? The evidence is clear, sir. 17 worlds accepted their protection. All 17 are now dead or empty. The hegemony doesn't protect worlds. It uses them up. Admiral Choi, who was also on the conference call, asked the crucial question. How long do we have before these devourers arrive? Minho checked his latest intercepts. Based on their messages, less than 1 year. Maybe as little as 8 months. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, President Jae-won spoke again. So our choices are: accept the hegemony's offer and become slaves until they abandon us to be eaten, or refuse their offer and face the devourers alone. That's correct, sir, Dr. Kim said. And what chance would we have against these devourers, Doctor? Kim and Do-hyun looked at each other. Neither wanted to answer that question. Unknown, sir, Do-hyun said finally. But at least we would face them as free people, not as slaves. That evening, as Kim walked home through the streets of Seoul, she looked up at the alien ships still hanging over the city. People on the street were going about their normal lives, most of them still believing that the aliens had come to help Earth. They had no idea that their world was being measured and weighed like cattle at a market. Her phone rang. It was Do-hyun. Kim, you need to get back to the lab right away. Minho found something new, something that changes everything. What is it? He intercepted a message that wasn't meant for the hegemony ships. It was meant for something else, something that's been watching this whole conversation between us and the aliens. Kim felt her blood turn cold. Watching? Who's watching? That's what we need to find out. But Kim, I think we're not the only ones who have questions about the hegemony's real purpose. Someone else is out there and they've been listening to everything. As Kim hurried back toward the science center, she couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was caught in the middle of something much bigger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The hegemony claimed to be protectors, but they were really just victims running from an even greater threat. And now there was a third player in the game, someone who had been watching and waiting in the dark. The emergency meeting was held in the deepest, most secure room beneath the Blue House in Seoul. President Jae-won sat at the head of a long table surrounded by his most trusted advisors. On screens around the room, leaders from other nations joined the discussion. Everyone had seen Dr. Kim's evidence about the hegemony's true nature. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said the British Prime Minister through the video link. These aliens are not actually offering us protection. They're offering to use us as human shields while they strip our planet bare. Dr. Kim nodded. That's exactly right. Every world that has accepted their protection has been abandoned when the real threat arrived, and based on their communications, that threat will be here in less than 8 months. Defense Minister Sang-hoon looked around the table with worried eyes. But what choice do we have? If these devourers can consume entire star systems, how can Earth possibly stand against them? Captain Do-hyun spoke up. With respect, sir, how can we stand against them as slaves? At least if we're free, we can try to find a way to fight. Admiral Choi, who had joined the meeting from her ship in the Pacific, agreed. I've read all the intercepted communications. The hegemony has been running for 300 years. In all that time, they've never tried to fight these devourers. They just run from world to world, using up civilizations and moving on. Maybe they run because fighting is impossible, suggested the German Chancellor through another video link. Doctor, Kim shook her head. Or maybe they run because it's easier than fighting. Think about it. Why would the devourers chase them across the galaxy for 300 years? If the hegemony had nothing the devourers wanted, why not just ignore them? What are you suggesting? President Jae-won asked. I think the hegemony has something the devourers need. Maybe something they stole long ago. And instead of standing and fighting, they've been leading the devourers to innocent worlds and using those worlds as distractions. The room fell silent. As everyone considered this possibility, Engineer Woo Jin, who had been quietly studying his tablet, suddenly looked up. Dr. Kim might be right. I've been analyzing more of the alien ship materials. Some of these metals and energy sources don't match anything that should exist naturally. It's like they're using technology that was designed by someone else. Stolen technology, Admiral Choi said grimly. They're not just refugees. They're thieves. President Jae-won stood up and walked to the window, even though it showed only the concrete wall of the underground bunker. So our situation is this. We can surrender our freedom to thieves and murderers who will use us and then abandon us, or we can face an enemy that consumes star systems. Those appear to be our options, yes, sir, Dr. Kim said. The president turned back to face the room. What does everyone else think? I want to hear from all the other world leaders. For the next 2 hours, leaders from every major nation debated humanity's future. Some argued for accepting the hegemony's offer, reasoning that slavery was better than extinction. Others insisted that freedom was worth any price, even if that price was the complete destruction of Earth. The Japanese Prime Minister raised an important point. Has anyone considered that the hegemony might not give us a choice? What if we say no and they decide to take our world by force? Captain Do-hyun had been thinking about the same thing. Based on their behavior, I don't think they will. They need us to cooperate willingly. A planet full of angry, fighting humans would be no use to them as a shield against the devourers. Besides, added Dr. Kim, their technology isn't as superior as we first thought. It's old and patched together from many different sources. I think they're weaker than they want us to believe. The debate continued, but slowly a consensus began to form. Humanity had faced extinction before, wars, plagues, natural disasters, and had always chosen to fight rather than surrender. This would be no different. Finally, President Jae-won called for a vote. One by one, the world leaders made their choice. When the last vote was counted, the decision was clear, though not unanimous. Humanity would reject the hegemony's offer. Very well, President Jae-won said. Admiral Choi, you will deliver our answer to Ambassador Tae-min. The next morning, Admiral Choi stood before the United Nations Assembly. The same cameras that had broadcast Tae-min's original offer now showed her response to the galaxy. Ambassador Tae-min, she said, looking directly at the tall, pale alien, humanity has considered your generous offer of protection. After careful deliberation, we must respectfully decline. Tae-min's large, dark eyes widened in shock. You decline? You refuse our protection? We do. But you will all die. Tae-min stood up from his chair, his calm diplomatic manner suddenly gone. The devourers will consume your world, your star, everything in this system. You are condemning your entire species to extinction. Admiral Choi remained calm. That may be true, but we will face whatever comes as free beings, not as slaves. You don't understand what you're doing, Tae-min said, his voice rising. The devourers are not like anything you can imagine. They are not a force you can fight with your primitive weapons. They are entropy itself, the end of all organized matter. Then why haven't they caught you in 300 years of running? The Admiral asked quietly. Tae-min went very still. The question hung in the air like a challenge. The galaxy is vast. There are many places to hide. Or maybe, Admiral Choi continued, you've been feeding them other civilizations to keep them satisfied. Maybe you've been buying time with other people's lives. The alien ambassador's pale blue skin became even more pale. You cannot possibly understand the complexities of galactic politics. I understand enough. I understand that you won't answer direct questions about these devourers. I understand that 17 worlds accepted your protection and are now silent. And I understand that you're more afraid of something than you are of us saying no. Tae-min looked around the assembly hall at the faces of human leaders from around the world. You are making a terrible mistake. When the devourers arrive, we will not be here to help you. We didn't ask you to stay, Admiral Choi replied. In fact, we'd prefer if you left immediately. The alien ambassador gathered his dignity around himself like a cloak. Very well, but know this. We have monitored your species for some time. We offered you protection because we believed you had potential. That potential will now be wasted. Your children will never see the stars because there will be no children. Our children will be free, the Admiral said firmly. That's worth any price. Tae-min walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. The devourers will arrive, within one solar rotation of your planet. We bought you what time we could by leading them on a slower path through several empty systems. Use that time wisely. After he left, the assembly hall erupted in voices. Some delegates cheered, others looked terrified, most simply sat in stunned silence. Dr. Kim, who had been watching from the gallery, felt a mix of pride and fear. Humanity had just chosen freedom over safety, courage over surrender. But she also knew that in less than a year, Earth would face an enemy that consumed star systems. That evening, as the hegemony ships prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Captain Do-hyun stood again on the roof of his command center. This time he was not alone. Hundreds of other people had come to watch the alien departure. As the massive ships began to move, their engines created patterns of light in the evening sky. But Dr. Kim, standing beside Do-hyun, noticed something odd. "Do you see that?" she asked, pointing to a section of sky near the departing ships. Do-hyun looked where she was pointing. For just a moment, the light from the alien engines seemed to reflect off something that wasn't there. A patch of empty space that bent the light in strange ways. "What is it?" he asked. "I don't know. But something else has been watching this whole conversation. Something that doesn't want to be seen." As the hegemony fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars, that invisible something also vanished, leaving Earth alone with its choice and its fears. Humanity had 8 months to prepare for an enemy that ate solar systems. 8 months to find a way to fight beings that had chased advanced aliens across the galaxy for 3 centuries. 8 months to prove that freedom was worth the ultimate price. The day after the hegemony ships left Earth, the entire planet changed. Every government, every military, every scientist and engineer on Earth had one goal: find a way to survive what was coming. President Jae-won created the Global Defense Council, bringing together the best minds from every nation. Captain Do-hyun was promoted to general and put in charge of military preparations. Dr. Kim led the science team, and engineer Woo Jin took over what they called Project Phoenix, the effort to understand and improve alien technology. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While cleaning up the landing site where Ambassador Taemin's ship had been, workers found small pieces of metal and electronic components that had fallen off during repairs. When Woo Jin analyzed these pieces, his excitement was visible to everyone. "In the lab, look at this," he said, pointing to a circuit board under his microscope. "This technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but it's not impossible to understand. It's like looking at a car engine from 50 years in the future. Different, but based on the same basic principles we already know." Dr. Kim leaned over to look. "Can we copy it?" "Better than that. We can improve it." Woo Jin's eyes were bright with possibilities. The aliens built this technology for their needs: long-distance travel, hiding from enemies, using minimal resources. But we don't need to run and hide, we need to fight. Within 2 months, human engineers were building new types of weapons and shields based on alien technology, but designed with human creativity. Where the hegemony ships were built for stealth and efficiency, human ships were built for combat and durability. Dr. Kim's biology team made another crucial discovery while studying recordings of Ambassador Taemin. She noticed that the alien's nervous behavior got worse whenever he talked about the Devourers. "It's not just fear," she told General Do-hyun during one of their daily briefings. "It's a specific type of fear. Watch his eye movements and hand gestures when he mentions them." She played the recording in slow motion. "See how he looks up and to the right? That's the brain pattern for remembering something traumatic. But look what happens when he talks about their technology." In the next part of the recording, Taemin's eyes moved differently. Down and to the left. That's the pattern for imagining something, not remembering it. "General, I don't think he's ever actually seen a devourer. I think all his knowledge about them comes from stories and reports." "What does that mean?" "It means the hegemony might not know as much about our enemy as they claim." This led Dr. Kim to focus on the intercepted communications about devourers. She spent weeks analyzing every message, looking for clues about what these beings actually were and how they worked. The breakthrough came from a message that was different from all the others. Instead of being sent between hegemony ships, this one was a data burst sent toward empty space. When Sergeant Min-ho decoded it, he found something amazing. "It's a research report," he told the gathered team. a scientific study of devourer feeding patterns. But General, this wasn't written by the hegemony. The language patterns are different, the scientific methods are more advanced. Someone else is studying the devourers. Dr. Kim read through the report with growing excitement. This is incredible. According to this research, the devourers don't actually consume matter directly. They use some kind of quantum field to break down molecular bonds and convert matter into energy. But the process has limits. What kind of limits? General Do-hyun asked. They can't convert matter that's in a state of quantum uncertainty. The energy patterns get disrupted by conscious observation. Woo Jin looked up from his computer. Conscious observation? You mean like the quantum mechanics experiments where particles behave differently when someone's watching them? Exactly. This report suggests that living, thinking beings create interference patterns that disrupt the devourer conversion process. The implications were staggering. If this research was correct, the devourer's greatest strength, their ability to consume matter, might not work against conscious living beings, but the biggest breakthrough came from the most unlikely source of all. Yuna was a 17-year-old student who had been following the global defense efforts on social media. She was interested in quantum physics and had been reading all the public reports about devourer technology. One day, she sent an email to Dr. Kim with a simple question. If the devourers can't process conscious matter, why does the hegemony run instead of fighting? Aren't they conscious too? Dr. Kim read the email 3 times before the answer hit her. She immediately called an emergency meeting. The hegemony aren't just running from the devourers, she told the assembled team. They're running from the responsibility of fighting them. Think about it. If conscious observation disrupts the devourer process, then every living being in the galaxy should be immune to their primary weapon. But the hegemony messages talk about worlds being consumed, General Do-hyun pointed out. Dead worlds, empty worlds, worlds where the population has been evacuated or killed before the devourers arrive. Dr. Kim was pacing now, her mind racing. The hegemony has been clearing worlds of conscious life, making them easy for the devourers to consume. They've been feeding the enemy. Engineer Woo Jin understood immediately. It's not just theft, it's cooperation. The hegemony strips each world of its people and resources, then leaves the empty planet for the devourers to consume. In exchange, the devourers leave the hegemony alone. Until now, Dr. Kim continued. Earth refused to be evacuated. For the first time in 300 years, the devourers are going to arrive at a world full of conscious living beings. A world that won't be easy to consume. This discovery changed everything about Earth's defense plans. Instead of building a few large ships like the hegemony, human engineers began building thousands of smaller vessels. Every ship would have a full crew, not automated systems. Every weapon would require human operation, human decision-making, human consciousness. General Do-hyun reorganized the entire defense structure around this principle. We're not going to fight them the way the hegemony would fight them, he announced to his commanders. We're going to fight them the way humans fight, with courage, creativity, and consciousness. The next 6 months were the most intense in human history. Factories that had once made cars and computers now made spaceships and weapons. Pilots who had flown commercial jets learned to fly combat spacecraft. Scientists who had studied distant stars learned to build quantum interference generators. But it wasn't just technology that changed. Humanity itself changed. The knowledge that Earth might have only months left brought out both the best and worst in people, but mostly the best. Nations that had been enemies for centuries began sharing technology and resources. Languages that had divided people became tools for cooperation. Dr. Kim established training centers where people learned about quantum mechanics and consciousness theory, not just for scientists, but for everyone who would crew the defense ships. Every person on every ship needs to understand what their mind is doing to help fight the enemy, she explained. Young Yuna, whose simple question had led to the consciousness breakthrough, was recruited to help design the human defense strategy. Despite her age, her understanding of quantum theory and her fresh perspective made her invaluable to the team. The Devourers have been winning for 300 years because they've never faced an enemy that understood how to fight them, she told a gathering of world leaders. They've only fought running targets in empty worlds. They've never fought a world full of people who know exactly how consciousness affects quantum fields. As the deadline approached, Earth's orbital space filled with human-built ships. They were not as elegant or advanced as hegemony vessels, but they had something the alien ships lacked. Everyone was crewed by humans who understood that their very thoughts were weapons in the coming battle. General Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Seoul, looking out at the thousands of ships surrounding Earth. Next to him, Dr. Kim checked her instruments one more time. Long-range sensors show massive gravitational disturbances at the edge of the solar system, she reported. They're coming. The general opened a communication channel to all ships. All crews, this is General Do-hyun. Remember what we've learned. Stay conscious, stay focused, and stay human. Today we find out what we're really made of. In the distance, space itself began to darken as something vast and hungry approached Earth. The Devourers arrived like a wave of darkness washing across the solar system. General Do-hyun watched from the bridge of the Seoul as his long-range sensors tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The entities were huge beyond imagination, each one larger than Earth's moon, moving through space in patterns that hurt to look at. How many are there? Asked Dr. Kim, who stood beside him monitoring the quantum field readings. 12 primary entities, reported Lieutenant Jin Woo from his sensor station. But General, they're not solid. The readings suggest there's some kind of controlled energy field like living black holes. The first Devourer reached the outer edge of Earth's defense perimeter and simply began to consume. Space stations that had taken months to build vanished. In seconds, their matter broken down into raw energy that fed the entity's growth. The human crews barely had time to send final messages before their installations disappeared. All ships, this is General Do-hyun. He broadcast to the fleet. Remember the plan. Stay close to Earth, keep your crews focused, and trust the science. Dr. Kim, are your readings consistent with the research? Dr. Kim watched her instruments with growing excitement and fear. Yes, General. The Devourers are using quantum field manipulation to break molecular bonds, exactly as predicted. But the process requires precise energy patterns. Any disruption should interfere with their feeding. The real test came when the first Devourer reached the main defense fleet. 300 human ships surrounded the entity, their crews tense but determined. Captain Park Min-soo commanded the first attack wing. All ships, target the entity's leading edge, he commanded. Fire all weapons. Human-built missiles and energy beams struck the Devourer. Most of the weapons had no effect, but something unexpected happened. Where the energy beams hit the entity's surface, small sections seemed to flicker and become unstable. General, Dr. Kim's voice was full of amazement. The conscious targeting is working. The Devourer's conversion field is becoming disrupted, wherever human-operated weapons hit it. But the celebration was brief. The Devourer, despite the disruption, continued moving toward Earth. Its massive form began to envelope the first ring of defense ships. Captain Min-soo's ship was caught in the entity's field. On the Seoul's bridge, everyone watched in horror as the smaller vessel began to break apart at the molecular level. Then something incredible happened. General, you need to see this, Lieutenant Jin Woo called out. Captain Min-soo's ship is still there. The ship was dissolving, but slowly, much more slowly than the unmanned space stations had, and Captain Min-soo was still transmitting. Seoul, this is Min-soo. The field is affecting our hull, but our life support is holding. The crew compartments seem to be protected. It's like Dr. Kim said. Our consciousness is creating interference patterns. We're buying time. Other ships moved in to help, their crews focused and determined. Each human mind created tiny disruptions in the Devourer's conversion process, like rocks in a stream changing the flow of water. It's working, Dr. Kim said, tears in her eyes. It's actually working. The Devourers can't easily consume matter when conscious beings are present. But the battle was far from over. The Devourers began to change their tactics, surrounding human ships instead of trying to consume them directly. They seemed to be learning, adapting to this new type of resistance. General Do-hyun was about to order the fleet to fall back when something even more unexpected happened. New ships began appearing at the edge of the solar system, familiar shapes that made his heart sink. General, we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Tae-min, Lieutenant Jin Woo reported. The alien's face appeared on the main screen, but instead of looking calm and diplomatic as before, Tae-min looked desperate and afraid. "Humans of Earth," he said, "we have returned to fulfill our agreement with the Devourers. As promised, we deliver your world to them. Your resistance has been noted but is futile. Surrender now and we will make your end quick." The truth hit General Do-hyun like a physical blow. They're not running from the Devourers. They're working with them. Dr. Kim understood immediately. The hegemony has been feeding civilizations to the Devourers for 300 years. That's their agreement. They find young species, convince them to disarm, then deliver them as food. And, when we refused their protection, General Do-hyun began. "We disrupted their arrangement," Dr. Kim finished. "So they've come to deliver us by force." The hegemony ships moved into attack position, but they were not prepared for what happened next. 300 years of running and hiding had made them weak. Their weapons were designed for destroying undefended worlds, not fighting determined enemies. Captain Do-won's fighter squadron hit the first hegemony ship with everything they had. The alien vessel, despite its advanced technology, was lightly armored and poorly defended. It broke apart under the assault. "All ships, new targets," General Do-hyun commanded. "The hegemony fleet is the real enemy. The Devourers are just their weapons." The battle became chaos. Human ships fought desperately against both the energy-consuming Devourers and the better-armed hegemony vessels. But humanity had advantages that neither enemy expected. Human crews were creative in ways that the methodical hegemony could not match. They used their ships' consciousness fields to disrupt Devourer feeding, while simultaneously coordinating attacks on hegemony vessels with tactics that were unpredictable and aggressive. Yuna, now serving as a tactical advisor despite her young age, noticed something important. "General, look at the communication patterns between the hegemony ships and the Devourers. They're not just allies. The hegemony are controlling the Devourers somehow." Dr. Kim checked her sensors. She's right. The Devourers are responding to signals from the lead hegemony ship. If we can disrupt those signals, the Devourers might become uncontrolled, General Do-hyun realized. Dangerous to everyone, including the hegemony. Captain Min-soo, whose ship had survived being partially consumed, led a suicide mission against the hegemony command vessel. His battered ship, still surrounded by the quantum interference field created by his crew's consciousness, pushed through the Devourer swarm toward the alien flagship. "Sol, this is Min-soo. We're going to ram the command ship. Tell my family I kept the promise." But before his ship could reach the target, something even more unexpected happened. The invisible watchers that Dr. Kim had noticed during the hegemony's first visit finally revealed themselves. Ships began appearing throughout the battle zone. Not human ships, not hegemony vessels, but something entirely different. Sleek, dark craft that seemed to bend light around them. A new voice spoke over all communication frequencies, speaking perfect Korean, English, and a dozen other human languages simultaneously. "Humans of Earth, we are the covenant of free worlds. We have been watching your species since the hegemony first contacted you. Your refusal to surrender your freedom has earned our respect." The new ships moved with impossible speed and precision, striking hegemony vessels with weapons that made them simply vanish. But they did not attack the Devourers directly. Instead, they focused on the control signals. "The Devourers are not evil," the voice continued. "They are tools, enslaved by the hegemony for 3 centuries. We are breaking their chains." As the control signals were disrupted, the Devourers' behavior changed dramatically. Instead of methodically consuming matter, they became wild and unpredictable. Several turned on the hegemony ships that had controlled them for so long. Ambassador Tae-min's final transmission was filled with terror. "This was not supposed to happen. The agreement has stood for centuries. You cannot change the natural order." "The natural order," General Do-hyun replied, "is freedom, something you forgot long ago. The battle ended when the last hegemony ship was destroyed by a devourer that had been freed from their control. The remaining Devourers, no longer guided by alien commands, simply drifted away into deep space, returning to whatever natural behavior they had before their enslavement. Captain Halcyon of the Covenant ships requested permission to speak with Earth's leaders. When her image appeared on the Soul's screens, she looked remarkably similar to humans, though her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had seen much of the galaxy. "Your species has done something that has not been attempted in 300 years," she said. "You faced the hegemony's lies and chose truth. You faced impossible odds and chose to fight. Most importantly, you have broken the cycle that has enslaved dozens of civilizations." Dr. Kim leaned forward. "The cycle? The hegemony's pattern of finding young civilizations, convincing them to disarm, then feeding them to controlled devourers. Your refusal to accept their false protection, and your discovery of how consciousness affects their weapons, has freed not just your world, but all the enslaved entities they use to maintain their power." General Do-hyun asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What happens now?" Captain Halcyon smiled. "Now you have a choice. You can return to your world and continue developing as an independent civilization, or you can join the Covenant of Free Worlds, an alliance of species that have chosen cooperation over domination." The choice, when it came to a vote among Earth's nations, was unanimous. 6 months later, Dr. Kim stood in the observation deck of Earth's first diplomatic vessel.